mic isn't muted. Hello?
How you doing, Mr. Pursuit?
Hey, what's going on, bro? What's up? I saw your reaction video, so it wasn't, I guess I guess I want to
I'll
do
just say
this
this right now. If I came off as a little bit mean, it's just for comedic effect. I
yeah.
wasn't mean. Come off as much of a cunt as I came off as.
Yeah, no, but that's fine. I guess we obviously have points of contentions where the premise of the video definitely was. I did, to be fair though, I did say that this is higher end interpretation, like higher end scaling. So honestly, just to let you know right now, I don't think that that's a genuine representation of Jack. But before we continue, since you did call my video out and me, publicly, you also said that. I could if I teach you how to edit, you'll teach me how to power scale, which I could edit videos for you, or even teach you how to
That,
edit.
that that was more just a that was more just a fun cunty jab. But I actually would
Oh,
love to learn how to actually edit because I'm dog shit at editing.
okay, so it was just a joke. Okay, but no, if you really do need someone to help you edit, or if you want me to edit videos for you, like if you want to get into power scaling, and then like we can collab and stuff. But since the video itself, it wasn't bad, but at the same time, it wasn't like I'm not gonna say negative. It was kind of eh.
Oh
Like
no, you can say it's negative. That's literally Zimmerporn style for as
yeah,
little effort as humanly possible.
yeah, so this is why I wanted to ask you, and if you don't want to, then I guess this would be my term and condition. If you don't want this to apply, then we can probably just like hang up and just go our separate ways. So I'm recording right now, and I need your consent.
I give you consent.
You do consent?
Our always gives you consent to record this voice call.
Yeah. So you're okay with that?
I am okay with that, yes.
Okay, cool. So, what the hell is that? Okay. Uh, so I guess let's just try to keep this organized. Let's not like try to jumble all over the place. Like I said, that video was high-end interpretations of Jack and Jack scaling. I felt like I did a pretty good job representing a higher-end version of Jack. Uh, let's try to. Okay, so let's talk about. You mentioned something about white eco and that Jack did not use dark eco from within the silo. Is that correct? Because I just saw the video twice. I just finished it.
That is that is correct. From what I know, it's the coming together of the four different eco types, and it's a big plot element in Jack 2 that Jack hasn't been exposed to dark eco.
Okay, so if I show you a scan that says otherwise, I'm gonna send it. 1 second. All right, so I just gotta transfer this photo because I have two accounts. I got one just for like scans, and then I send it to my main account so I can like upload it to YouTube to organize. Because like my photo gallery, whatever, gets kind of weird. All right, let me name it as J1. Save. All right, so that's downloaded. Balrog Blaze. Image. Okay, come on. Open up. All right, so search J1. Why am I tripping, dude? Hold on. Forget that. Let me use my phone. Like, you're literally right here. All right, there you go. So, can you go ahead and read that out loud for me?
Give me a sec. Go down. Don't you moving down?
Can you see it?
Hold on a sec. Trying to get my computer to move for me. The power of the four sages and dark eco. Okay. I stand corrected there. I didn't see that scan.
Yeah, and in reference to you said my first video wasn't worth watching. It's kind of funny because that
That's
scan.
more from an argument standpoint. That's from more from an
Okay,
argument standpoint because
no,
I've
no, no.
I've
I wasn't
also
trying to get to
had
that though.
this debate for years.
Yeah, yeah. I get no, I get what you're saying, but I guess whether or not if you were being like,
When I say that some of these videos not worth watching,
hmm
what I actually mean is that like some of their arguments aren't completely up
yeah,
to
yeah. Okay,
up
I
to
get it.
par. But I will admit that I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, so that's that, and that I actually showed that scan in the first video. So when you said that, I was like, oh, that's what a shame because I actually showed that in the first video. So I guess he maybe skimmed through it, like he didn't bother. Like as soon as he heard Planet Level Jack,
Um,
like he got.
it's been it was a couple of months ago since I saw that one, but
Yeah.
I completely forgot that video even existed because we were streaming, and
Okay.
someone told me that you had a new Jack Power scaling video out, so I just went straight to that one because I thought new information would be the more current scaling.
Yeah. No, that's
That's why
fine.
we reacted to the new one and not the old one.
Yeah, that's fine. So we do know now that he was using Dark Eco as well. We also you also said something I wanted to touch up on. You said white eco. Can you go ahead and explain that? I haven't seen any guidebooks or any cutscenes or even in the gameplay.
So as far as I'm aware, there are two different types of eco. There's white and there's light. Light eco, as far as we know, just seems to be the element itself, as white eco seems to be the collection of the four different eco types coming together.
Yeah, the four different eco types were absorbed by the sages, and they were being conducted through the silo, which is what we saw in the cutscene with Jack versus the precursor robot. So those four
Yeah,
different colors didn't just
that's
come
right.
from nowhere; they were extracted from the sages. And then, so with White Eco, can you demonstrate? Like, do you have a scan? Like, can you like direct me to where I could find that? If not, I'm just gonna hold my position as White Eco isn't a thing because people. There's actually another video. Some guy was talking about White Eco, and I was like, what? Like, where is this at? So if you don't have it on you now, we could postpone that. But as far as I'm
I don't
concerned,
have it. I don't have it on me,
okay,
but I think about 4 years ago when I was talking to another Jack Scaler, they told me that I was wrong and that they're two different things. And
okay,
I remember they showed me a scam, but I don't remember where they got the scam from.
okay. So there may be white eco out there, which if that's the case, then I have questions about black
It's one
eco.
of those positions that it's one of those positions where it's not going to particularly matter whether it is or isn't the same thing.
Okay, so since we don't have it, I actually did try my best to look for it. Like I went on Google, I went on forums, I have the guidebooks right here next to me. Uh, I
Basically,
couldn't find
it's
white
basically
eco.
one of the bad things where for some reason, they got D. Snyder from Twisted Sister and they put a voice filter over him for Gaul for some reason.
Okay,
Everyone else sounds normal, but they decided to make him have a bloody voice filter for some reason that makes it really hard to understand, which is
okay.
weird because I think it's also one of the only PS2 games of that era that didn't come with subtitles.
Okay. So, like I said, my stance is that white eco isn't a thing. I think it's as of right now, until somebody could show me, redirect me, where the evidence for white eco is. White eco is not a thing as of right now. I really did try to find it. I couldn't find anything. So that's where I'm just gonna leave that. So if you want to finish your closing thoughts on that point, then we can move on.
I'm happy that the stand corrected on that. It's not really a point that's really all that important.
Okay. So next, I want to discuss Samos just by passively existing can effortlessly destroy the planet. You saw the word corrupt and you're not seeing the word busting, quote unquote. That's what you said in your video. So would you like me to show some some interpretations that
If,
would, for high-end scaling, prove my point when I was saying that he could casually
if
destroy the
you
planet?
have if you have anything, I would love
Yes.
to see it.
Yes. So, let me grab my phone. So when they say corrupt, we know that. if you look on multiple different definition sites, corrupt can also mean, or it says corrupt can also be used as a verb meaning to destroy the integrity of someone or something. What is the integrity? Here's another scan right here. The integrity is the state of being whole and undivided. So for a power scaling sense in higher interpretations, it's literally saying that, for high end interpretations, the corruption of the planet is the destruction of the state of the planet as a whole, so it would still apply for high end scaling. So that's where I was getting
The
with it.
problem is that we know from the context of Samos that it's not actually corrupting the planet, and because the entire paragraph for the entirety of that guidebook, every word is capitalized, so we don't know if it means the planet or
Yeah,
if
we
it
don't know.
means
You're right on
just the
that.
ground they're standing on.
Yeah, you're right on that, but it
The
just
other problem,
redirects.
the other problem
Yeah.
with that is it'd be weird that Green Eco being the life force of the planet for Samos to corrupt it just by standing on the ground. It doesn't make any actual sense, and it could literally just be a case of he just doesn't want to stand on the ground. It'd
Yeah,
be like
no, I
somebody saying, "I
understand.
don't want to corrupt this thing by touching it."
Yeah,
I
so
personally don't think there's enough evidence to support that claim.
yeah, but that's the point of high end scaling though. Like it's I'm using high ends and outliers. Like that's the point. Like
The,
and
the, the problem is that for claiming something like that, you'll need a little bit more and something just a little bit more blatant.
yeah. Hello, you still there?
I'm still here.
Okay, yeah, because I thought you cut out for a second. So yeah, no, this would still apply, given the community as a whole, especially since now people like with the whole, like for example, like Naruto and Ichigo. Not going to get into that, but just the point of that is people are now using higher end interpretations. So like they're saying Kaguya is universal because you can interpret certain statements like that. It's out of pocket for sure. I don't agree with it, but for high end scaling, I guess you could use it. And then for high end scaling for Bleach, you have like multiversal statements and things like that. So obviously, it's not consistent. It's not a genuine representation of either of those characters, especially if we're talking about Jack. But for high end interpretation, which I said in my video, it would apply because it can be. It doesn't make sense and it's not consistent. You're right. I agree. But to be fair, my video was higher end arguments, higher end scaling, inconsistencies, and outliers. So there doesn't really have to be.
I understand that. The
Yeah.
problem is that I don't think
Yeah, you don't have to agree. That's
it's
fine.
I don't agree, but I just don't think it's saying what you want it to say. Um, this could just be a difference of opinion, but I don't think you have enough there to assert that.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of higher end scaling. I don't need like a preponderance of evidence. I don't have to have like a string of like several different
You
instances where that's the case. I can
you
just
kind of need a little. You kind of need a little bit of
for
a preponderance.
consistency.
You kind of need a little bit more.
For consistency, yes, but for
Yeah, it
higher
would
end,
kind of
no.
help the argument go along just a little bit easier.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. But for consistent based videos, like in my first video that I made years ago, I had like when it comes to certain points about Jack and his physical stats, I had like several different examples making like okay, he's multi-building level because he did that. There's another time where he did multi-building level stuff because he did this and this and this and this and this. So that's based on consistency. Outliers and high-end scaling and high-end interpretations, I only need like one or two. That's the whole that's where we're
Understand
kind
that,
of
but the
getting
problem is
confused
it's
here.
not blatant.
Yeah.
I understand that, but the problem is that you don't have like even for the one piece of evidence, it's not clear enough for you to be asserting that even if you are trying to argue under the guise of the highest end interpretation you could possibly take. I understand that,
Yeah.
but I also think you should have just slightly a little bit more evidence just to back your point up. Otherwise, it's not the best thing to use, especially when you can interpret that a couple of different ways, especially if you want to try and bring in dictionary definitions for corruption.
Yeah, and it's
And
not
then you
just
also have
one
to take
site,
in
it's like
like
multiple different sites too.
the context of the series as well.
Yeah. So that's where that is. So yeah, we have different opinions, that's fine. So scaling to star level for Jack in part 1, If we were to go along with the high end interpretations, we would see that Samos can casually destroy planets. We know that at peak, he should be multiplanetary, and all the other sages should scale either relative or above
Why should
Samos
he be multiplanetary?
because he can casually destroy the Earth, with, like just by existing there.
But it
So he's
doesn't say casually at all. It
yeah,
doesn't say or imply casually, even if you're
yeah.
using the highest end interpretation.
Well, it doesn't have to say casually. It doesn't have to be
It
like
does. If you're
no.
going to assert that
Hold
they
on.
did it effortlessly,
Okay,
you have to assert that with some evidence behind it.
the evidence is that he has to wear those buffers because if he's just walking around without them, then the planet would be destroyed. So that's all I need.
That's that that doesn't equate to
You don't have to
casually
agree
being
with
able to
that.
do something.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again,
No,
him
you can.
corrupting, even if you want to go with the highest end interpretation that he's corrupting the Earth, again, taking the highest form of interpretation that means the actual planet itself, it
Yeah.
could be just, if he was to walk around, he could just corrupt the Earth over time. There's nothing to assert that he's doing it all at once at the same time. You're
Well, there's
trying
also
to stretch
nothing.
a lot of evidence.
Yeah, that's the point. That's that's the point.
Yes, I understand that, but you're stretching a bit too much.
Yeah, no, but that's the
For,
point. That's
for
the point.
trying to have these higher end arguments, again, you bring up Naruto and Ichigo, but I know some of those higher end statements, and they're backed up by multiple pieces of evidence as well.
Yeah, I know,
You're
but
asserting this with
hold on,
one
hold on,
piece
hold
of
on.
evidence that may not even mean what you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah, I know, but based on consistency, they don't though. But like I said, I don't want to get into Naruto and Ichigo, but based on what's consistent, they don't though. That's the comparison. There's a difference between analyzing a
That's
character
fine. If you
consistently.
wanted to go by consistency, then
Yeah,
most shonen characters wouldn't get past building level.
I wouldn't say most, but I see what you're saying. But no, the point is, I'm just simply explaining to you the whole star level scaling for Jack 1 with the high end scaling, right? So we know that he has to wear those as restraints because if he didn't wear those, then the planet would be corrupted, aka destroyed. And nothing else is stated like, oh, he has to be at 100%, fully enraged, ready to fuck some shit up. All we know is that he just needs those buffers to separate himself from the planet. Like he just can't be there without some sort of restraint, and so that's why it
The
can be
problem
interpreted that.
as well is that you're asserting that there's nothing saying that he's he's holding the. See, I know what you're trying to assert, but the problem is that I can assert something just as well with just as little evidence. Because the problem is that you're asserting that he's doing this casually, but we don't have any evidence to assume that even if he was to corrupt it, that's even casual, or even that's at all at once. I know you. I know you're really trying to take the highest end you can,
Hmm.
but even highest end scalings need a preponderance of evidence to some degree.
Yeah, no, and that's the part where I do and I don't agree. With higher end scaling, we're typically talking about outliers, things that are, either extremely rare, like one or two instances, and and things like that. So not necessarily, but I understand what you're saying too. Like I said, I agree with you. I'm just saying that when it comes to higher end scaling, it doesn't have to be like consistent at all. It could just be like out of pocket. That like that's what I'm trying to get across. So that's why, which I'm going to explain, since he would be, you know, effortlessly planetary at that point, this would mean at full powered and rage, he'd be multiplanetary, which would, even at the bare minimum, if you're lowballing while highballing, it would be well above like, 2 to 3 times planetary. I'm not trying to throw a number on it. We don't know. That's why I just, as a broad statement, multiplanetary is just you can say however many times you want to. So if that's the case with high-end interpretations, as little evidence as, and by the way, even based on consistency, if we're just talking about Jack being city block level, multi-building, there's not really much of that anyways. Like, like it's crazy. So
I think you'll find that there's more of that than you actually think. It's
yeah,
funny because the Lost Frontier actually has consistent feats around that tier.
yeah, they do. But I guess I meant it in terms more of like outright feats. Like we don't actually see him lifting up like a skyscraper or some shit. Like it's kind of like off-screen statements and shit. Like for example, he carried that artifact from the top of the. It wasn't the silo. It was the pillar next to it. I forgot what the hell they called it. The citadel. Yeah. So he carried that motherfucker all the way back to Samos's hut. We never actually saw him do it though. But like Daxter said, oh, we did all the heavy lifting. But he usually tries to take credit from Jack. But yeah, so he carried that shit across like a country plus level distance on his back. Apparently, I don't know. Like we don't know how he does it. And then there's other things that are just weird. So if you really like, I think people downplay Jack because of just we don't. It's not like Saitama from One Punch Man where we see like this crazy apocalyptic, um, craziness going on. All these feats just, or like Dragon Ball where they're blowing up planets and things like that. Like we don't see much of that for Jack, like on a consistent level with like buildings and mountains and things like that. Um,
So,
like he's not out here like
so
throwing skyscrapers and shit. So like it's kind of mostly like statements and things like that.
I,
But like I
I
said,
understand that when most people say the character is in the building the large building range of power, they just mean that they can either move or hit with like either anywhere between like a ton to about 12 tons of force.
yeah,
Like building levels really not that impressive in hindsight, but you're trying to say as well that if you went by that logic, you could get them to star level. The problem is, I'm pretty sure even by that logic, you'd need to be, I think, over 100 times planetary to reach even small star level. So
I think
how do
small
you
star
make up that
levels.
difference?
Because we know that there's brown dwarfs and red dwarfs. So we're going to talk about brown dwarfs because they're essentially red dwarfs that haven't undergone nuclear fusion, and those typically have like 4 times the mass of Jupiter, like 4 to 10 times, depending on who you ask, whatever website you go to. Don't at me. Um, but no, like I said, you don't agree with this, but that's fine. This is my high-end interpretation of the story of Jack, right? Just me going on doing what I'm thinking. So with Samos,
I understand
yeah, yeah, no,
that. I'm just trying to.
yeah. So I just want
I'm
to,
I'm
yeah,
not trying to. I'm not trying to debunk you or like trying to fight you on this. I'm just trying to get a better understanding by asking these questions. That's all.
yeah, so that's why I was just gonna briefly explain. So with this, with these outliers, we can interpret, which are high end, and it is not a genuine representation of Jack at all. It's high end interpretation. It's higher end arguments. If we go based on that,
So before you're saying that like the brown dwarves and the red dwarves are about 4 times the mass of Jupiter. Are you asserting that Jack's planet is the size of Jupiter?
no, 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 no. I'll get to that. Like that. That's why I need to briefly explain really quick. Um, so with these high-end interpretations, this high-end scaling, Samos would be multiplanetary, and then the sages would scale relative, if not slightly above that. We know Galamaya basically like folded that man, the red sage, in his own house. They said he wasn't even a challenge. So both of their combined powers should be multiplanetary as well. And then we know that the precursor robot scales to them, and with the one that they had created actually absorbed all of their powers and was attempting to absorb the power from the Dark Eco Silo, and then the Dark Eco Silo also being, scaling above the Force Ages, so that would already be large planetary. So you have like four, five, six multi-planetary sources plus a large planetary source from the Dark Eco Silo, which should put him in the star level ranges.
The problem is that
Yeah, yeah, I know. There's
the problem
massive
is that
problems with it, but if
you're asserting someone is planet level.
yeah,
They are above planet level, so they should be multiplanetary.
yeah, full
The problem
power
is that
range.
you need kind of an actual statement of how much more power they gain. Otherwise, it's just a higher end
I mean, I could
into
also
that
do it
tier.
like this, though. I could also do it
So
like this.
let's say I have a character who can let's say I have a character who can destroy a planet, and then they beat somebody who
Effortlessly.
should be stronger than they are at the end of the next arc. You
Yeah.
wouldn't assert that they're multiplanetary because they could fold them the last time,
So
unless you
then,
have a statement how many
so then
times
they'd be
stronger they
Planet
are.
Plus, wouldn't
The
you
only
agree?
thing you can actually assert is that they are uh, further into the planet level scale.
Yeah, so Planet Plus.
Yeah,
Because I
it's
could
kind of
still
one
I
of
could
those
still
things
work
where
with
it's like
that too.
until you get an actual number going, or at least something that can represent a number, like they fight someone with a multiplier or something like that,
Yeah.
the best you can do is say they are higher into that tier that they previously were.
Okay, so even using that, it'll still be in the star level ranges. So like Samos would be Planet Plus, not multiplanetary. All the other sages would scale relative, if not slightly above. Golemaya would also scale relative, if not no, they would scale above because they beat the red sage. Then the precursor robot would scale relative or slightly above. Then the Dark Eco Silo, stronger than having a power source, stronger than everybody there, would have to be Planet Plus. And then you would get like large planetary with all those combined sources,
Or
and with the
Where'd you get Planet Plus from? Because we don't know to what extent they're stronger.
actually we
You can
kind of
say that somebody
now we
faulted
don't have
someone,
it.
but you don't have an
Yeah,
extent.
yeah, but I was gonna explain that. So we do know that with all these different planetary level characters and sources, we do know that Jack, when he absorbs all of these different energy sources and acquires the light eco, which is the concentrated power of all of them, it's not just like planet plus plus it's not like red sage plus green sage plus blue sage plus yellow sage plus Golemaya plus no, it's not in additions, it's actually in multiplications, because if that was the case, then Jack with the light eco would have just stalemated with the robot. He wouldn't have been able to fold it as he did because he was using the power, because the precursor robot already obtained the power of the four sages and was somewhat dipping into the dark eco silo. So if Jack was using their level of energy sources against the precursor robot, it would have been like a much harder battle. They would have been stalemating. Like he actually packed them up and sent them home. So clearly, when he absorbed all these different energy sources, logically, it's safe to assume that all of these energy sources like magnified ridiculously, kind of like a spirit bomb.
Why would they magnify
Because
continuously?
because
Why
because
would
they
they
packed
just
up
not be additions
because
to each other?
yeah, because they packed up the precursor robot. If he only acquired from the power from everybody that was involved, also the precursor robot also gathered the power from everybody that was involved, including Golemaya, who were inputting their own power and controlling the robot. So
Or couldn't
it would have been
you
equal.
just say the combined forces of the sages overwhelm the robot and Golem Maya?
No,
They
what?
could still just sit
No,
within the
no,
planetary to
no,
multiplanetary ranges.
no, it wouldn't.
And why is that?
Because the precursor, we already talked about it. The other sages would already be in the Planet Plus range, and Golemaya would also be in the Planet Plus range, and then the precursor robot by itself would be in the Planet Plus range, and the precursor robot absorbed all of their different.
Yes. So you've got
You got multiple
two
sources.
characters.
Yeah, no, you have
You got
multiple
two char-
sources in there.
You've got two characters who are
Hmm.
adding Planet Plus power onto a Planet Plus robot, but then you've also got four, by your logic, four Planet Plus characters all feeding their power into Jack. Now,
Yeah, and he magnified it to an
Jack
insane degree
Jack
and
could
packed
just
up the
be
robot.
now, and Jack could just be one times better. Again, this is not sounding like star level. Even with your logic, this is just sounding like it could be Planet Plus to multiplanetary.
Like there's
Look, this is going to end up being a difference of opinion.
yeah, no, that's
Um,
fine. That's
do you
fine.
want to move on to the next part? To the
Yeah,
next part?
yeah, we can move on to the next one. So we have the precursor stone being a threat to the extent of wiping out all life, especially considering the star, the planet, basically the entire solar system. Typically, when stars go supernova, the solar system goes along with it. And so let's just talk about that. Like for high-end interpretation, like what do you consider that? Because it says that I could post that here.
Uh, Honestly,
One second.
if it's threatening all life, multi-continental. If you want to take it to its highest interpretation,
Actually,
planet level.
I could argue that shit being universal if you're talking all of life, bro. Like that ass, like
Well,
it's crazy, but I can.
problem. Here's the problem: is that you're asserting that it's all life in the universe, but
Yeah.
even if you were to assert that, that doesn't make it universal. That would just make it the highest end of multi-galaxy. But even worse, we know that all
Uh,
life has basically been
excuse me.
extinct as either the Dark Makers or the Metalheads have literally ravaged worlds that they have previously visited and they've just been hopping from planet to planet. So you
Yeah.
can't even argue to the extent that other life forms are even still alive, because we know that life came from the precursors making and shaping worlds out of the asteroids with their robot
Yeah, and
and filling it
universes.
with life. You don't have evidence for universes.
I do.
And when we have the context of the story of the metalheads and the dark makers jumping from place to place, destroying what the precursors have made, you still end up with planetary because it's only talking, even if it was talking about what life is still left, all
Hmm.
life that is left has now converged on the one planet.
Yeah.
This is what I mean when I say in the video, you're asserting something with no evidence.
No,
You
I do
need,
have
and
evidence though.
even if you're trying to take the highest form of interpretation you
No, but
can,
I do
you
have
need.
but I do.
It's a requirement. You need something a little bit more to prove your point.
Yeah, no, but I do have evidence though. So the precursor stone will not only destroy the planet, but it'll wipe out all life. Even Vin said that it would destroy "quote unquote" everything. So that's why I said universal, or you could also
Everything
argue
can
the
literally just mean
galaxy.
in context to the planet.
Yeah, it could mean, but for higher end scaling, it would destroy all life. Not only, well, it would already destroy the world. Like he
Yes,
already
and
said
if
that.
you're going by the highest end interpretation of what you argue, it's multi galaxy.
Yeah, yeah. There's no issue there.
Well, the issue is that you're asserting that it's universal or higher, and
Yeah,
I've basically so did you just concede that even if it's not so you're not willing to bend the planetary, that's fine, but you're at least willing to say that it's multi galaxy.
because the infinite universes that reside within creation within the Jack
Okay,
cosmology are
okay,
formed
I'm
within
gonna
the
ask you
eco.
this now. Can you prove that the Jack universe is infinite in size? If you're going to say it's based off our own, we don't
Hmm.
even know how our universe works, and
No,
our universe could be
I'm not even
infinitely
saying that.
expanding. That doesn't make it infinite. You need to have evidence to assert that the universe is infinite in size.
Okay, so let's. I will get to that in 1 second. Hold on. So the precursor stone being able to destroy the world and even more, wiping out all life, being above comprehension and things like that. So that's why it would be in the solar system level range for high end interpretation. I'll get to the whole universal thing in 1 second. Hold on. And then we have core, and then that's another thing. I want to do this in order. So we'll put that topic like after this and the next. So we're gonna have two topics, and then we'll go back to the universal thing. So that's where that solar system level interpretation comes from, and then you have core, and then this is that part of the topic we need to discuss. You said that the Jack timeline was just a circular timeline based on what we've seen.
It's a
So
closed loop timeline. Yes.
yeah. So there's reasonings to why there are infinite timelines, and each timeline possessing its own universe, and many different Jacks and Samoses that there are. Uh,
Can you prove that?
yeah,
I don't mean to cut you off, but if you're going to go with the multiversal argument, like how Dragon Ball does things, this is definitely something. Even if you want to try and hide behind highest end interpretation, you are going to need evidence for this. Otherwise, it's a closed timeline, and you don't have evidence for different universes
yeah,
that
I do.
all these different timelines that
No,
Jackson, Samoses, and Cores.
I already. Hold on.
Because the problem is that I know what you're going to assert that Core has eaten the precursor
You already saw
stones
this scan. I'm just putting
throughout
it here
time.
just for
Here's the problem: is
reference.
that it's a closed time loop because Core is always meant to die. I've seen the mirror statement, and it
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
have
No,
what
I'm
you
just putting
think
it
it
there
does.
for just putting that there for reference. I'll explain it in a second. So continue.
So the problem with what you're asserting is that everything happens exactly the way that it did before. So this is how we know it's a closed time loop. Samos even says and even acknowledges. So this is how it happens at the end of Jack 2. He even acknowledges that he has to go with toddler Jack and help him grow up. It's a closed loop. Core is always meant to be let in to the planet by Jack. Jack is always meant to go back to the future. Everything. in the entire timeline is always meant to happen the exact same way.
Yeah.
That does not equal different timelines. You have to actually prove that something has a different timeline. For example, let's use something like Dragon Ball, where going back in time does lead you to a different universe or a different timeline. Or we could also use something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Are you aware of
Yeah,
what
I like JoJo's
Dirty
Bizarre
Deeds
Adventure.
Done Dirt Cheap does?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can assert that JoJo and Dragon Ball works off a multiversal system because it's shown that's how time stuff works there. But Jack, you don't have any such evidence. What evidence we do have is that it's a closed timeline. It's a closed time loop where everything repeats itself and nothing changes. All of the events happen the exact same way.
Okay. Anything else you wanted to add, or?
Um, no, I'm pretty much done on that point, so I'm
Yes.
ready to hear your explanation.
Yeah. So, eco is stored in the planet since the days of creation. Creation is basically anything that exists within existence. Creation contains infinite universes and timelines, contains the
Uh,
multiverse, hyperversal abstracts, and things like that. This is why
you okay?
hold on, hold on. I let you talk. I let you talk. 1 second, please. Just 1 second.
That's fair. I'm sorry.
I'll let you get it in. I'll let you. All right. So for high-end interpretation scaling, based on the guides, creation as a cosmological structure, you can even look at it in like in real life novels and fables and things like that, like the Bible and things like that. And it's funny because the uh, uh, Andy Gavin and Jason Rubin actually made Jack and Daxter Bibles as a parody. So when you look at these Bibles, um, which I can actually show you, like I can send links and things like that. Actually, I'll do it right now. So basically, when they say since the days of creation, they're already exposing the cosmology for Jack. So creation, in a general sense, for power scaling and high ends using outliers, which was the premise of my video. What I'm saying with infinite timelines and things like that would be the case. I understand you don't agree with that, and it doesn't make sense with the story because of a closed loop timeline, which is based on consistency, the more accurate way to interpret it. But what I'm saying is with higher end interpretation, based on the guy. Look, man, I didn't write this shit. Like I didn't write it, dog. Like I'm just sitting here reading what they're saying about it, and that's what they said. Apparently, the Jack cosmology contains creation. Creation has infinite timelines and universes, the multiverse, hyperversal abstracts, concepts, and things like that.
On
It's
every
yeah. That's all
hold,
that's all I need
hold on
to
a
show.
sec. No. I'm not stopping your argument. I'm just
Yeah,
being
no,
back
you're good.
into the doorway for something. I'll be back in like 2 seconds.
All right.
All right, continue.
But yeah, no, I was basically done with that. So yeah, that's all I really had to say to demonstrate my high end scaling for Jack based on the cosmology. Also, in your video, you said why stop there? Why don't you talk about outer versal Jack? I actually could with a relevant
Well,
speed on
that's
top
what
of
I
that.
meant. Like, you shouldn't just if you're gonna go this route, you might as well take it to its fullest extent and say that he's out of versal.
Yeah, I could actually do that. It's pretty disgusting. Like I don't like it, but it is what it is. Like I don't know. So I guess we got the whole power thing out the way. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just want you to know that. What I'm saying is, with high end interpretation, it could be whacked out like that. That's all I'm saying. So, can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Okay, that's good. But yeah, that's all I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying, but uh, even with higher end interpretations, we know the extra context to this because of Jack Free when you bring up the mirror scan. the mirror scan, when it says in terms of creation, is literally just in reference to the planet or any of the planets the precursors
Well,
go and then get
actually, it's
eco.
not. It's not actually. It's in reference to when we look at the eco core, for example, when the precursors had stored eco within the eco core since the days of creation, they actually utilized all that power when they were forming universes and things like that. And that's the next point we'll talk about. But I'm not. I'll just 1 second, okay? So they needed a place to put it because they're hiding their eco supply from like the metalheads and the dark makers and things like that. So they needed a place to put it. They already have a device that contains the eco, and they decided to put this device called the eco core in the planet that Jack resides on, and this causes a natural stability within the entire universe that they live in. And we know that the eco core is important for the stability of the entire universe because if unchecked and if one eco source goes out of whack completely, you get a sky heat moment where he creates alternate dimensions, which can be interpreted for high end scaling as an entire universe that's completely out of whack. That's why we see all those abstract orbs and things like that. Shit gets really out of pocket and weird. So it's just the planet in and itself isn't like the limitation of it. It's like putting something valuable and precious in a safe. So for higher end scaling,
So
that would be the case.
I know we covered this in the video, but I'm gonna have to ask this again. Do you have anything, any kind of evidence to assert that Sky Heat created those pocket dimensions,
Yeah,
or are you just heavily assuming that with no evidence?
yeah, I
Because
do. I have a scan.
because BFR exists. Like I use the example from Saint Seiya with Gemini Saga and Gemini Canon, where they both have different techniques called Different World and the Golden Triangle, where they just send you to a different universe.
Yeah. So this was already in the video y'all saw, but I guess I'll just break it down. So we know that the Behemoth, the ship that Skyheed is essentially flying around with, he's basically powering up all the weaponry that's going on in there. We know that the Dark Eco abilities that Skyheed was dishing out with Jack when they were facing each other, like head on, when they were deep inside the planet, is not within like the standard weaponry of the Behemoth as far as we can tell or see. So the Behemoth in and itself was also absorbing the power of the Eco Core and just like the Dark Eco portion of it. And Skyheat outright said, "Yo, I'm gonna like commit suicide and put myself on a T-shirt to stop Skyheat from double dipping, so becoming more powerful." So we know all of those attacks from the Behemoth is coming from Skyheat, in which he does create alternate dimensions, which you can interpret that however you want. But for high-end scaling, those would be universes. And considering the fact that the Otzels,
Uh,
the
so,
precursors,
before we continue, the problem is that even the scan that you provided does not say what you want it to say. What it says is that you are drawn into an alternate dimension.
yeah, that was created by Skyseed. Yeah,
These dimensions can already pre-exist.
no, they didn't
The
pre-exist.
orbs just teleport you in there. You need to have
No,
more
they didn't
evidence
pre-exist.
to assert that.
Where did you get pre-exist? Like Skyheat manifested those. They
Can you
were they.
prove that? Because
Yeah,
these
yeah.
can literally just be realities that pre-exist.
No, they don't
You got no
pre-exist. He
evidence to
made
assume
that.
they created
They
these.
weren't there before, and they had a whole fight scene.
Okay,
He's
so
channeling his power through the behemoth, and he's absorbing the power of the eco core through the behemoth. It's all channeling through him. He did that. Like, what do you?
yes, and he can still use that power as a doorway. That's why BFR exists. That's why not every character who has BFR is attributed to creating their own dimension.
Okay, so since I can't prove that those dimensions had already pre-existed, can you prove that they did pre-exist? If not, then high-end
Okay,
interpretation
so
of
Here's
high-end
the problem is that
stands.
now we're at an impasse where you have no
No, I
evidence,
was asking
and
you a
I'm also
question. I
asserting
answered
something
it.
with no evidence.
No, I do have evidence. You asked me a question. I
You
showed you.
have no evidence.
I do.
All
I
you've
just showed
got
it.
is drawn into an alternate dimension. Okay, here's the problem.
Yeah, that he created.
You're being drawn into an alternate dimension. It
That he
doesn't say
created.
that Sky Heat has created and drawn you into a dimension of his own making.
Yes.
This is where you have to actually look at the wording of something.
Okay. Look at the wording.
I have, and it doesn't say what you think it says.
Well, you're like okay, so based on the gameplay and the cutscenes, we know that Skyheat is using the behemoth to absorb power from the eco core and is using that power to funnel it through the weaponry of the behemoth, which then shoots out these orbs that, if touched, you get BFR'd into an alternate dimension, which was created through Skyheat from absorbing the power, just a portion of the power of the eco core. So I don't know about the whole pre-existing, like they were always already there, but that's not likely at all. And even if that was the case for higher end scaling, Skyheat would still scale to that. So because he's tapping into the power of
Why
the
would
eco
he?
because he's tapping
Why
into
would
the
he?
power of the eco
Why
core
would he
itself
scale to
in those
something that already
dimensions,
pre-existed?
because the eco core is funneling through all that. It's the reason why all that's happening. He's borrowing power from the eco core, so he would scale to it anyways regardless. So like I said, like I understand what you're saying. I do. I'm not disagreeing with you. That I'm just saying, like, for high end interpretation, that could be the case. So we can that's just my
This is
stance. We
going
could
to be
add.
another agree to disagree. Let's move on to the next argument.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I think that was it. I mean, unless you want to hear me talk about an outer versal jack, which I'm pretty sure I don't want to give you a headache. So let's just stick with the video itself. Now we can go on to speed, and we'll start with infinite speed. Spicy. So I already heard your stance on it. Your homeboy, what's his name? Zematorn? Zema?
You can call him
I'll just call him
Zimitorn. You can
Zema.
actually he prefers the real Zimitorn. He loves that.
Is he a Transformers guy, or is that from Transformers? Or
No, no, it's an ongoing joke we have that because he was called Zimitorn, and when he was making a PlayStation account, someone already took that name, so he had to change his name to the real Zimitorn, and we've just been giving him shit since.
oh wow. But yeah, no, just for reference, if you thought like this high end scaling was a headache, imagine debating a Transformers guy, bro. There is so much shit in there that's so out of pocket. I never thought Optimus Prime would be that strong. Like, bro, like, come on, dude. Like, it gets so wild. So, like, if you thought Jack was bad, oh my god, like, I know a guy who does Transformers power scaling.
Don't worry, we have a Transformers guy in our server, and
Yeah, that shit gets.
I'm just like I'll stick to the cartoons. I don't need any of this comic bullshit in my life. I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, Optimus Prime is broken, dude. But yeah, no, so like I guess the point of referencing that is like that's a common thing in the community where people just interpret high-end scaling. Like I said, I believe my first video was a more genuine representation of Jack, talking about, multi-building level feats, city block level feats, things like that, and then light and dark Jack being in the planetary range. You have statements like light Jack is this newfound power going to save or destroy the world. You can interpret that as like, oh, like that's not planet busting, but things like that. But it is more of a genuine representation rather than the whole hyperversa with the measurable speed Jack. But yeah, like I said, the whole infinite speed. Um, so I know you guys, not you, you didn't agree with none of that shit. So I know your homeboy said that the infinite ray of light. I guess we'll just go in order. So there was the precursor robot propelling across the universe. No, I don't have it. There's nowhere that it's stated that the universe is infinite in size. So just taking that statement at face value for high end scaling, they can just cross universes, whether they'd be infinite or not. You can assume that it could be infinite. So that was my stance on that. And then the metalhead one, now that one is, via portals or via ships, so I do understand the confusion there. But we do know, um, so like, I just want you to like, I'm gonna ask you a question, just so we can understand infinite speed. So infinite speed is near instantaneous because the difference between infinite speed and instantaneous speed is that
Mm,
is that instant.
that's going to depend on the series
Yeah, yeah, I know. It depends on depending on what you're watching, but in a general sense, infinite.
because that is because that's gonna end up being weird because
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're
then
saying.
you run into the people who try and use teleportation for speed.
Yeah, I know, but I'm not. That's not where I was going though. I'm talking about physical raw speed. Um, so infinite speed is if you were to punch somebody while possessing infinite speed, you would essentially be hitting them in 1/infinitieth of a second. I forgot the name of it. It's like some weird ass fucking name. Second, I don't know. I forgot it, but it's 1/infinitieth of a second. It's 0 point infinite zeros, but it will always have a one at the end of it. And infinity, unlike instantaneously, if you punch someone with instantaneous speed, you punch them in absolutely no time at all. So that's the difference. Um, and infinite
If
speed can
you're
still
if you're
be.
if you're hitting someone and you have infinite speed, you should have it infinite combat speed. A good example of this is Dark Schneider and his fight against Uriel.
Yeah. So basically, what I was saying is, infinite speed is also interpreted as near instantaneous because it is. Instantaneous speed, if you punch someone with instantaneous speed, it's literally in an instant. Like there's no seconds involved in it at all. But if you punch somebody with infinite speed, it would be 1/infinitieth of a second. So like that's in a general sense, that's where that would sit at. So I just wanted to let you know that for this scan coming up. So infinite speed can also be the terminology of it could also be referred to as near instantaneous. So we know that with high end interpretation, with that scaling, like if you don't agree that infinite speed is also can be referred to as near instantaneous, I understand. But for high end scaling, infinite speed can be interpreted as near instantaneous. And we know, and I'll post a scan here, we know that fodder metalheads who are absolute dog water, and there's many other metalheads that scale above them in speed, they have near instantaneous speed or infinite speed for high end scaling, who Jack scales above massively. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just have to mm, really like smush my face against the screen so I can read it.
Oh, was the photo not good? You need me to send an.
No, no, it's good. It's just not. It's just not. It's just not particularly zoomed in on my end.
Okay, so I could read it out loud to you. I don't have no reason to lie about it.
No, no, I got. I can see it. Um,
Okay.
that's fine. That's fine for if you're going for higher end interpretation scaling, but uh, in actual power scaling, it does get weird
Yeah, it does get
when
really
people
weird.
use near instantaneous.
Yeah. So that's the whole infinite thing for the metalheads, and then finally the infinite ray of light. You guys extrapolated on. It's just referring to an infinite supply, which more than likely that is the case based on consistency. So I don't disagree with you there. But for high-end interpretation, it could also mean that the beam of light itself, from the Hellcat, which is fodder, to Jack's reestablished, stabilized form, and then his ability to retransform. We don't see him retransform, but it's implied that it wouldn't scale to Jack at all. So it's not necessarily disconnected, even though you can't assume that. Like, no, it's just infinite supply, but it could also mean infinite speed. So that's where the high-end interpretation comes from. I know your homeboy said that's somewhat reasonable. and you didn't agree with it at all. So I'll just, if you have any comments on the whole infinite speed thing, we can move on to inaccessible. And yeah,
Just move on to the inaccessible stuff because um, I would like instantaneous to be a little bit more blatant, but again, if you want to use that for higher end interpretation, I I still don't think it qualify. I don't think it still quite qualifies, but I can see the argument.
yeah. So for inaccessible speed, I guess the first thing I'll do it in order, like how the video was presented. So, Light Jack being able to stop time, you guys referenced that it doesn't make sense because when he got the abilities, like the only thing that we see is like certain shit just gets slowed down, and that's all we really see. Even in the Jack 3 guide, it says he can slow time down, but in the Jack and Daxter Bible, which was also on screen in that video, says that he can also freeze enemies. So it's obviously referring to time manip to a complete stop, not like ice or anything. Like he doesn't freeze somebody with like ice-based powers. So for high-end
The
interpretation, that would be that.
Well, even for higher end interpretation, the problem I have with that is you can still have a character slow time, and they can still be referred to as freezing their enemies in their place.
Yeah, that could also be true. That could also be true. So I guess the next one would be Jack in the Time Rift. So this one's gonna get weird as shit. So I already know we're gonna disagree.
I thought your other evidence was inaccessible came from Jack being able to move in his own time slow, and me and Zim both
Yeah, yeah.
pointed out
I just went
that's
over that.
not
Yeah.
that's not exactly how you achieve.
Okay, so like I believe, yeah, I said this to someone in a comment because they actually questioned that. They said, "Wait a minute, but if Jack is the one activating this time-stopping power, wouldn't that not apply to him? Wouldn't he just be protected from his own ability to manifest that?" And I agreed, but I also said that for higher end interpretation, it doesn't matter who's the one casting the time-stopping power. You're still moving in an area that doesn't have time in it, so that's where we just kind of settled it right there.
I feel like even for people who take higher end scaling, I think even people who take higher end scaling are going to have problems with that because
Yeah, that's
they
fine.
generally want someone who isn't manipulating time to do it first. Like that's why we brought up Adam from Wreck of the Ragnarok because he technically reacts to Zeus in stop time, and that does grant him an accessible reaction.
Yeah,
Zeus gets it via virtue of keeping up with him. That's like neither here or there.
yeah. So that would apply too.
Yeah, we'll just that was more to give you like a better example of what would more or less qualify. I think what would have really helped your video is if you made it a little bit more clear that these were the highest end interpretations and you don't necessarily agree with them, but this is what you could argue
Well,
for.
I did say that in the beginning. I said higher end arguments. So I just kind of assumed that, people knew what I meant by that. So that I guess like maybe I'll be more specific if that's what you're saying.
Well, the problem is that just to give you a bit of context behind me and Zim, we've spent the last year and a half having an absolute bloody war with God of War power scalers,
Oh wow.
and we've become pretty jaded with like not getting any evidence whatsoever.
Well,
Or
I
when we
just
do find the evidence, we find out that they've faked the fucking evidence.
Yeah, well, I'm a pretty cool dude. I just power scale for a hobby. Like all this shit is just fun and games for me. Like I'm not tripping about it. I know I'm not perfect and some of the shit I say is out of pocket or inaccurate or whatever, but at the end of the day, like I'm not like how would I word it? Bitter or arrogant. Like I'm not gonna sit here and die on a fucking hill and like ruin my reputation just to fucking prove a point when somebody disagrees. Like, hey, look, if it's most likely not the case, it's just not the case. But in this situation, I am saying that even though these are most likely everything in the video, even though uh, more than likely none of that is a
Do you just
genuine
want to say?
interpretation.
Do you just want to say you're not a cunt like Seth the programmer?
Yeah, oh no, God, no, I'm not that motherfucker. He was on some dumb shit. Like I actually had a few run-ins with his ass. That it was
I will stand on this hill and die. while I ran my cock down a 4-year old's throat. Whoa there, buckaroo. How about you hold the fuck on and get away from me?
Yeah, that it was hella out of pocket. But we could actually talk about Seth on a later day. I did tell my people, like on my channel, like I didn't really. It's not that I didn't want to speak on it. It's just I didn't want to come
There's nothing
across
to
as
there's nothing to speak about.
yeah, it's
He's a cunt who's not even that good at power scaling. He's lost that many debates. He just doesn't post the ones he loses.
he got some research from me too. So I mean, I guess if people think I'm a shit power scaler, then well, then what does that make Seth? Because he did copy some of my work, and I can prove that too. So I'm
Oh
not gonna.
no! Like after all these allegations that come out, this has nothing to do with the video. This will be the final like shit talk about him. But like we even found out that he didn't even do any of his own fucking power scaling. He got people to script it and power scale for him.
Yeah, that's
And I'm not. I'm going to low key say this as well. That's pretty much what happened with his God of War video because his God of War video has a lot of evidence has now been proven to be uh, fake or taken out of context.
yeah. So I'm not gonna lie though, when it comes to certain topics, I do have people. Like my homeboy Jobbers and Goons, he gangster as fuck, makes content daily. Go subscribe to him. He's great. Like if you like
Oh, I
combos and
am.
stuff.
I am. Um,
We actually collabed
he's
on
where I figured out some of the higher tier speed scaling for JoJo.
Yeah, he's really good. So he's my Star Wars guy. So he didn't write my script when I did the whole Boba Fett and Alien versus Predator video. I actually did the Alien versus Predator scaling myself. But when it came to the Star Wars portion, he has a Discord. I'm in his Discord now. Like he has many different threads where he says, "Manny, you need to go here. Look at what I did. Just take a look at Boba Fett. Get more accustomed to it." He actually did a few classes. I was in a voice call with him and like 50 other people. He was scaling Star Wars for all of us and things like that. So I was a fan of Star Wars. I just never knew how to power scale it. So yeah, so I do have a Star Wars guy, Doctor Goon. That's what he likes to be called. So I do have other people that are well knowledgeable on the animes or video games that they like, and they let me copy their homework. So it's not that I'm Seth where I'm like sitting here like, oh, I know everything. No, like I have people that help me too. So like, and that's fine. Like it's if you actually need help from people, like that's not a problem. The problem is where with Seth it was like he made it seem like he did everything. Like you got to credit your people. Like you know what I'm saying?
Or just blackmail them into doing whatever you want because just be shit to everyone. Just be shit to your friends.
Yeah, that was depressing. Like when I saw that Keemstar shit. Anyway, let's get back to the we kind of deterred from what we were here for. Um, so we got that first part out of the way with Light Jack, and then this is the part where I already know it's gonna get a little rocky. But Jack in part one in the time rift when Core pulled up. That's another inaccessible speed feat for higher end interpretations. Being yeeted through how time streams typically work in a general sense from like one universe to another. Um, whether it be that same universe's past or not, like you said, the enclosed timeline, which I'm not disagreeing to it. I'm just using higher end scaling. But regardless, traveling through rifts and things like that, that would be inaccessible speed. Same thing with like Ratchet and Clank, for example. Like when they do that shit too, like that would also be inaccessible speed as well. I don't know if you disagree with that for Ratchet and Clank, but I think it's a valid point.
I have Ratchet and Clank inaccessible, but for a different reason.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that like Ratchet and Clank have done that too, so that they would be inaccessible. Like the feats are like somewhat similar.
Hmm. Even as of recent, I calculated how fast they would be in the first game in terms of reaction,
Yeah, and then
and it's
finally, oh,
pretty fucking silly.
yeah. So then finally, being able to move around in dimensions from Skyheed, that are composed of only dark eco. I understand, like, we don't know if there's space and time in it. It was never said that there was or that there wasn't, but for high end interpretation, these dimensions are composed of dark eco and only dark eco. That's all that was really said about it. It's just a reality of just dark orbs. That's what they called it. So obviously they're referring to dark eco as a whole. So there's no space and time for higher end interpretation. So that's where I was going with that. So that would also be an accessible speed. So I'll let you take the floor on that and let you say whatever comments you need to say, and then we'll move on to immeasurable.
You pretty much already said what I'm going to say. Like I'm going to disagree based on the fact that we have no assertion of the dimensions and stuff like that. And when it comes to the time rift, again, that's kind of weird. I don't necessarily agree with that, but at this point, it'd be more reiterating points that have already been like said.
Okay. So for immeasurable speed, we know that creation as the cosmological structure for Jack in the Jack verse was hinted out in the Jack and Daxter Bible. I think it was the part three. Oh shit! I said I was gonna post the fucking thing. Hold on. But yeah, we know. I'll actually just post this guy's video. He has a link in the description about it, and I'll post just that one. He has two other videos: the Jack and Daxter Bible 1, 2, and 3. You click the description, and then you go to the link, and then you just copy and paste the key, and then you go into the Jack and Daxter Bible. So that would be another um, for the whole cosmology. So, like the cosmology of creation, we know that the Jack verse has creation. It says that the eco was stored in the earth, in the eco core. Well, it doesn't say in the eco core, but we know it's the eco core. The eco core in the earth, right? It was stored in there since the days of creation. So we know that the Jack cosmology has creation. Creation, especially since the creators of Jack and Daxter parody the Bible, you can interpret that as in the same similar sense as long as well as not only the Holy Bible but like the Quran or other novels and fables on how creation is set up with infinite timelines, universes, the multiverse, hyperversal abstracts, other different pocket dimensions and shit like that. Um, this was all um, formed by the precursors, and we know this because Skyheed, once again with high end interpretation, he was able to create multiple dark eco universes. We know dark eco and many other eco types have space and time manip, life manip. They have different other concepts that come out of it, like the concept of speed and motion, the concept of strength and power. They produce all of these ideas because nothing had existed before, because all of creation, stated in the scan that I provided, is exactly that. Like everything that could be and that is there. And eco is used to formulate all that. And seeing how the Otzels scale above Skyheed, they scale above him massively. They've mastered and honed their eco abilities way better than him. And not only there's three Otzels, but from implications, we know that there's an entire race of them. So each and every one of them, for high end interpretation, would scale above Skyheed because he only absorbed the power of a portion of the eco core, to whereas they literally fill up eco cores and scatter them throughout they scatter eco throughout the world. And there's like dark, like in Jack 1 they had like blue eco vents, yellow eco vents, and things like that. So we know that they would scale above him in terms of ap, in terms of creation and things like that. And seeing how Skyheed with just one eco type and not even to the fullest extent what the eco core could provide was able to make multiple universes. So basically, the entire race of them, all of them working together based on Skyheed, would have enough power to create a cosmological structure such as creation, meaning that they would predate time, space, and dimensions, life, death, all these different concepts, which would put them I asked Jobbers and Goons, and and it's funny since we mentioned him a while back. I'm not going to show our DMs. I have it right here, but I'm not going to show it because I got to ask him. But no, I showed him, and he said, yeah, you can interpret that as them being like hyperversal, and I also hinted that that could also be baseline autoversal. You know, he agreed for high end interpretation. So, and since his channel is predicated on a lot of videos that do high end scaling with high end interpretations, I do consider him to be an expert on high end scaling. So, I went and I actually, so it wasn't like I just randomly like just started saying things. I actually talked to people before I made like this video. Um, so yeah, basically, eco is the fundamental building block of like creating planets and things like that. That's what they consistently say throughout the games and throughout the guides. But for higher end interpretation, you could also refer that to the universes that they reside in, space time manip, life manip. Also in the Jack 3 guide, which was in the first video I made years ago, it stated that eco is actually a like in general, like all the different types of ecos is actually magic. It says it's a magic based energy type. So right there, it's already breaking the laws of theoretical physics, quantum mechanics, logic. So you have an energy type that can basically do whatever you want it to do. All you really need to prove now at this point, well, I guess I'm talking in third person. So the only thing I would have to prove is that do they have the power to back that up? And with Skyheat, we see that for high-end interpretation scaling. So since they produce eco, because eco is the very essence of their being, they explained it when Jack in part three. They said eco is the very essence of their being and that they just produce it. Eco comes from them. So like the essence of someone's being is like sweat or blood, like something like life energy that you emit. So creation couldn't have been a thing without the precursors emitting as a race, like all of them working together as a race. uh, you know, doing all that to create that cosmological structure, and then in the guides it also says Jack, interacting with the totems inherited the powers of the ancient race of that of the elder gods. So he basically tapped into all of their energy sources and would be hyperversal with immeasurable speed based on that. It's gross. It's definitely inconsistent and not a genuine representation of Jack, but for high-end interpretations that he could be there. So that's what I have to say about it, and I'll let you take it from there. Just let everybody know how much that just sounds like just tomfoolery and it's just weird and dumb and just yeah, you can go ahead and take the
I
floor.
think at this point, everyone knows that. Like, I'm gonna fully disagree with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
But it's at the point where it's like just arguing for the higher end scaling. Sure, that's how you can interpret it. I'm not gonna fight back on that anymore because I've got it out of my system
Yeah.
now that I've like because it's hard to get it out of your system because I keep forgetting that you're arguing for the higher sense interpretation, even though I keep acknowledging it. It's just a reflex.
Yeah, so like I said, it's I don't think that's a genuine representation of Jack. It's just if anybody wants to get out of pocket, like, and if I want to troll people, like Goku versus Jack, and then I'm going up against a Dragon Ball fan, and he's saying, "Oh, he's multiversal, the Infinite Void," I could literally fuck with him all day. So, yeah, it's pretty funny. Oh, another thing that you guys mentioned, you said because the guides say that the precursor robots pull up on barren rocks and they add life to it so that they would need an asteroid or like a moon or a dead planetoid to actually make a sustainable life living planet so they can't just like create a planet from scratch. There's actually a situation like if we look in part 1 with Claw and we see him with a portion of the precursor tech that was like super beat down, nowhere near functioning how it's supposed to be. We literally see him throwing what did that warrior say, 30-ton boulders or something like that. We see that Claw can just manifest solid material and then just manifest large boulders out of thin air. So by extension, a precursor robot could do that at a planetary scale, so they wouldn't need to just find like I know it says that they typically do that, but they wouldn't need to. Like for higher end interpretation, they wouldn't need to find a barren rock or a planetoid to like have a functioning planet. They could just make one from scratch. Like there could literally be nothing there and they could just manifest it. Just like how Claw did with the boulders, and they could definitely do that on a planetary scale. So that's just another little minor point that you guys said that I almost forgot.
Now you've brought that up. Um, in the Japanese guide, you stated in your old video that you get actual dimensions like the actual sizes of the places. Um, would you still have those on you, and could you like point them out to me? Because
Yes, sir.
I'd buy a Japanese guide, but they're like nearly
Yes.
$200, and I don't particularly want to use Google Translate.
Yes, sir. So you wanted the one where Katsuji Mori made?
Uh, yeah, uh, I basically just want to know
Yeah,
um,
I got you.
the dimensions and the sizes and what pages you got that from.
So, wait, what dimensions? I only showed
So, like the dimensions of like how big Sandover Village actually is, because you said
Oh,
that the
okay.
Japanese guy gave you actual like distances.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. All right, 1 second. All right, here we go. Did you get it?
Yeah, I got that. So, whereabouts on these pages does it state how big the areas are?
I can't zoom in from there. Yeah, so it's shown with the numbering of the different places that he visits.
I think you'll find I think you'll find that that's the page number on that part of the village.
Page number.
I'm pretty sure you'll find that's just
Well,
supposed to be like a fun
this doesn't
index
have a
guide
hundred.
to.
This doesn't have 170 pages though, so it can't be that.
Hmm.
Let's
Why
see.
would it have P? Do they? Do we have any other times in Jack where they
It's
measure
in
distance
Japanese.
with a?
Like you could order that off Amazon, and then like maybe if you know a guy that could translate. But
I mean, I just spent $300 on fucking Ratchet and Clank guidebooks, and then my insurance is coming up. I'll probably have to buy it later in the year. Oh God,
yeah,
life's pain. Yeah, I'll probably end up buying that later in the year, and if I end up finding something from it, I'll give you a hit up.
okay. So I think we covered everything. Do you have any comments or questions?
No. So me and Zim still plan on reacting to your Death Battle debunk of Ratchet and Clank vs Jack and Daxter. Is that going with your high end interpretation of Jack, or would that be your regular interpretation? Because we don't know anything about it. We're going into
Yeah.
that blind.
Uh, I guess without spoiling it, it's not what you think it is. It's not a versus battle. I'm
Okay,
literally,
so
yeah.
is it more one of those things where people say it's a debunk, but what they actually mean is they're checking to see if the information is correct?
Yeah, basically, it's like that because they showed in.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's basically what Jobber Go Dot does with the JoJo death battles.
Yeah, so it was basically,
Yeah, so it was
without
basically
spoiling too much, it was basically me just like, not appreciating the downplay and just asking questions to very blanket statement. It's kind of like the questions you had for me, but I will never be able to talk to people
the
from Screw
problem is
Attack about
that
it.
I find that even if death battle,
So like we won't get
the
any
problems I have is that
explanation.
I find that even if death battle gets a fight correct, they usually have the most dog shit answers, and or they don't have answers at all.
They hyped up Ratchet being FTL, and I'm like, what the fuck? He does that shit in his sleep. Like, what are you talking about? Oh, he dodged a laser, and it's like, why is that impressive?
Like, they do that all the time. They still fucking do that with
Yeah,
Dragon Ball. They
they
fucking do that with Deep Sea all the time.
Yeah, and then I had to mention that Jack dodges lasers too, but you guys never said that. Like you, like it just they made it seem like
It, it's literally shown. You have metalheads that literally fire actual lasers.
yeah. So I was just sitting there like they don't mention Jack dodging lasers. They say Ratchet dodges lasers, but they made it sound like oh my god that was crazy, and it's like bro no, like with higher end interpretation I can say some pretty wild shit about Ratchet. So I don't know. It's just and then they said nanotech is more reliable than eco. My issue isn't whether or not if that's true. My issue is they didn't even bother to explain. Like I'm not going to spoil the video. Like you'll see. It's not bad. I don't scale Ratchet and Clank. I don't do a versus battle in that video. I'm just questioning like why are you downplaying them? Why are you saying these blanket statements? It's not like our situation where you can
I scale Ratchet and Clank. I have a lot to say about the death battle. They don't even. So even for the weapons that they bring up for Ratchet, they don't even bring up any of his good weapons. And even at the time when the death battle came out, they literally used one of the weaker fucking rhinos.
I saw some videos scaling Ratchet to star level plus, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Uh, I saw one video that basically just plagiarized somebody's work from DeviantArt.
Oh wow.
I don't know if we saw the same one.
Yeah. So I guess I'll just stop recording now since we got all that out the way. So yeah, we can continue to talk. I'm just gonna stop recording.